Sequence start 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello there, everybody. I am using OBS for the first time ever. Last minute here because my XSplit broadcaster wasn't working, so I don't know if my audio's working. Give me a 5x5 or some indication out there that you can hear me, because I've never used this before. I don't know if I've got the settings working right. Thank you, Dennis, so much for your support. Dennis says, good evening, everyone. All right, loud and clear. If you have any trouble with the audio or anything tonight, let me know. This is going to be a pretty short broadcast for one reason. We're getting started so friggin' late. Like I said, I was working with my other. I usually use XSplit to broadcast, and they've changed something. So anyway, that's okay. I needed to migrate over to OBS anyway, so I'm doing it on the fly. Probably screwing things up. But anyway, so tonight's show is going to be a little more somber, I guess, than usual. Um, there's, no reason to be feeling jolly tonight, so I'm not going to do the games and stuff like that. Boy, what a freaking mess, huh? We're kind of coming together tonight under pretty grim circumstances. Earlier today, as you all probably know by now, Charlie Kirk, who's a conservative activist, founder of Turning Point USA, he was speaking at an event in Orem, Utah, at UVU, Utah Valley State University in Orem, and was shot and killed from late 2006 on. I'm sorry, from early 2006 till late 2007. I actually lived about a mile away from where he got shot. I used to live in Orem, over on 200 South. That means nothing for most of you. So I know the town, I know the school. In fact, I took some classes over at UVU, some stuff I had to take to finish my degree. So I wasn't a full-time student, just took some classes. But anyway, the way I heard about this today was actually one of my sons is a student out at UVU right now. And he called us and told us about it. He goes there as a student, but also is employed by the school doing work. He does work on a little event crew. What they do is when there are events like this, they go in and they set up the chairs and the tables and whatever. They're kind of like the event crew. So he went in, actually, they went in yesterday and set up for this event on the campus there. And if you've seen the videos, there wasn't a whole lot set up. They got instructions from the security team on how they wanted it set up. So this wasn't the school's decision of how to set it up. When you look at it, you can see there's not a whole lot of barricades or anything to keep the throngs of people from getting in close. If you know Utah or Orem, Provo area in general, Happy Valley as they call it, very low crime rate, very, very safe place to live. No violence. They almost never have any trouble on campus. At these schools. You've got BYU, Brigham Young University, down the road a little bit. A lot of these guys are returned Mormon missionaries. It's a peaceful group of people. So anyway, in fact, what he told me and my wife, told my wife, and she relayed it to me, was that they were told how to set it up. Charlie had his little tent that he sits under, and it's outdoors, and there's kind of a tiered stadium type seating there outside, so they didn't have to set up a bunch of chairs for the audience. And anyway, really all they had were some of these little metal barriers, fencing around the perimeter of the fence. They did tell my son's group certain ways to set it up so that there would be an evacuation route in the event that there was some kind of violence or something and they had to get out fast. So they did have some attention to it, but the event team from Charlie Kirk's team, his security team, they were in coordination with the local police there for the event. Nobody expected violence. So they had 6 full-time cops in uniform at the event. They also had a handful of plainclothes cops embedded in the group there, which is pretty standard. But anyway, nobody was expecting it. In fact, as I understand it, after Charlie got shot, they took him away in a private vehicle over to Timpanogos Hospital. But if you've seen the video, he was dead as soon as he was hit. There were so many people that were like, oh, there's this idiot out here. Let me ban some of these people. But you watch, if you watched it and you saw, I mean, I saw it right after it happened. Like as soon as they first put up the first footage, and I grabbed it, I downloaded it because I figured social media would delete it. In fact, if you want to see it, if it's not available out there, all right, let me just hide one of these dummies out there. I swear. Since I'm new on OBS here, I don't know all the stuff to ban people that are out there causing trouble. But anyway, all right, so that should take care of him. They weren't expecting trouble, so they didn't even, they didn't have an ambulance there or anything. The hospital wasn't far, but if you see the footage, I saw it, and my initial reaction was, he was probably dead within seconds. There was so much blood, gushing. It looked like he was hit just below the jugular on the left side. And all these people that were there, I was watching interviews of students and people that were at the event. They were all like, oh yeah, he got shot in the heart. He was bleeding from his heart. Well, where are you seeing this? But the video is clear. So if you have not seen it and you have a very strong stomach and you want to see it, I do have the video up on our Telegram channel, t.me/Blackstone Intel. But please do not go and watch it and get grossed out or traumatized by it and then come back and complain about how it triggered you. It's graphic, it's gruesome, it's horrible. But I did put it there just to preserve it as a historical event. I think it's important that we keep these things, and I can understand some social media platforms removing some of this stuff because it is just too graphic. And if you're not the kind of person who wants to see this stuff, you shouldn't have to log into Twitter or wherever and be bombarded with gruesome imagery. So I get it. But anyway, yeah, he was dead as soon as he got hit. Now, what I am saying tonight could be very different tomorrow, some of the facts as they come out. As we're sitting tonight, we don't know who did the shooting. We don't know if it was left wing, right wing. We don't know anything. We can certainly speculate about who and why. There's plenty of theories, but we don't have the facts yet. So what I'm saying tonight could be very different tomorrow once we have gotten more information. Because as of this broadcast, they don't have the shooter in custody. The FBI had picked up a person of interest, and Kash Patel, the FBI director, tweeted out about it. Oh yeah, we got the guy, and thank you everybody. And then had to tweet out again, oh yeah, sorry, no, we don't have him. We let the person go. There was somebody who early on, we see footage of an older guy, just some white hair on the sides, probably in his 60s, down on his knees, hands behind his back, handcuffed, had glasses, cargo shorts, looked like a pretty normal looking guy. And people were saying it was him, and I could hear him in the video, in the audio, saying, I have the right to remain silent. I guess he was being asked questions. But anyway, so they determined he wasn't the shooter. someone had said he was yelling, shoot him or something before it happened. And that's why so I don't know. I just don't know. We're still in that fog of confusion, but this killing of Charlie Kirk is part of an ongoing culture war that we have going on. And when you kill someone of such prominence in a culture war like this, it's going to send shockwaves through the political landscape. So we've got over today in the halls of Congress, they're fighting about this and using it, both sides, Democrats, Republicans, grandstanding. And then in the halls of the virtual halls of social media, whether it's Twitter or Facebook, wherever, you got the same thing. Democrats and Republicans pointing the finger of blame back and forth. But the rhetoric is extreme. That's it. We've had enough. This is it. You Democrats, we're coming for you now. And it makes no sense because we don't know yet who did it. And certainly, even if the shooter is a Democrat, that does not mean that the Democrats are part of this. And I'm going to talk about this rhetoric because I really don't like what I'm seeing out there and what it's leading to. What I think that both sides do agree on, though, is that no matter what your personal feelings for Charlie Kirk are, regardless of what you think about his politics or his confrontational style, he's an American who had the right to speak his mind and express his views. He shouldn't have to fear being murdered by an assassin. Let me knock somebody else out here. I swear, the very thing I'm talking about, we've got we got people out there doing the same thing. I'm responsible for this, is what the person in chat is saying. Yeah, I'm totally responsible for Charlie Kirk getting shot. It's an example of exactly what I'm talking about, the kind of imbecilic rhetoric that is causing such partisanship. But Charlie Kirk, I didn't like his politics, and I'm going to talk about that. I'll explain why I didn't like his views. But he should not have had to fear being murdered by an assassin in broad daylight. I have strong feelings about public figures or people in social media, including people like me, having the right to talk about difficult, controversial issues without having to fear being attacked or having our families attacked. And I can say I've got these strong feelings in part because of my own activism and what it has resulted in. From multiple acts of vandalism here on my own property. A pretty bad thing that happened in 2019 that resulted in poisoning after an event or during an event that I was speaking at up in Connecticut. It shouldn't be like this. Today's killing is a symptom of something going on in American society. And unless we face it head on, this kind of thing is going to become increasingly more common. So I'm going to take just a couple minutes, make a few remarks about Charlie Kirk himself. Then I'm going to share my concerns about the general atmosphere of the United States today and where things may be going from here. So I want to start out as a token of respect for those of you listening who were fans or are fans of Charlie Kirk. Let me start by saying I admired his skill as a performer, as an organizer. Having done a little, something similar, I know that for him to accomplish what he has, the guy had vision. He knew what he wanted. He had a goal. He had self-confidence. He believed in himself. He was a good manager. He put a team together that helped him to achieve these goals. He certainly had tenacity to accomplish everything that he did over the years. And like a lot of people, I offer very sincere condolences for the sake of his wife and his children. I mean it when I say that a lot of today, off and on, I've been on the verge of tears just thinking about the heartache that his wife and his kids have got to be experiencing. And I was thinking, as soon as I saw the footage of him getting shot right after it happened, I knew he's dead. I mean, there's no question that he's dead. But it took hours before they released the information, and they let Donald Trump announce it, which I thought was very tasteless. But I was thinking during that interim when people are still, let's pray. If we pray enough, God can work a miracle and make him live. I'm like, oh my gosh, despite my own history as a Christian, when you see the kind of massive trauma, the guy was dead. So unless God was going to resurrect him, I knew this guy's dead. And so I'm thinking the reason probably that they have not announced this yet, among the reasons, is probably that they needed time to notify his wife, let them process this a little bit before they released information to the media. But I have no doubt that even before they got him in the vehicle to take him to the hospital, he was gone. And if you watch that video on our Telegram channel, I mean, you can see it. He's gone. So I feel awful for Charlie Kirk's family. And it is going to take years, most likely, before they start to even begin to feel some semblance of normalcy again. And even then, when they do start to pick their lives back up, and they're going to continue to have emotional scars from this for the rest of their lives. Now, I don't think that it is disrespectful for me to express my opinions on Charlie Kirk, since I disagree with a lot of the things that he said. I agree with some of the stuff he said. But the shift into Christian nationalism and merging church and state was contrary to his own past views. When he started out earlier on in the 2010s, by 2012, when he set up Turning Point, which was an outreach to get college students involved in the political process, he was not a fan of any kind of merging of church and state. He thought religion needed to be out of politics. But in 2021, he saw what a lot of Trump MAGA influencers saw, which is there are a heck of a lot of evangelicals who are really into this stuff. And so he shifted over and started Turning Point Faith with a pastor, evangelical pastor. And then it became very, very overt. Let's merge church and state. Christianity should be infused into every facet of American society and government and everything. So I disagree with that. I do not believe that religion should be part of politics. I think that I think like Ron Paul. Ron Paul is a good Christian man. He's a man of faith. But he does not believe in mixing, trying to impose religious values, no matter how nice you think your values are. Trying to legislate your values or impose your values through a political process. So that's something that I disagreed with Charlie on. And in general, though, Charlie Kirk rose to prominence not so much because he had the best ideas or the greatest skill at rhetoric. It was because he had a skill for creating spectacle. Just like Ben Shapiro was really good at and used to grow his prominence, Charlie Kirk found a kind of role in debating kids on college campuses rather than debating well-informed, mature adults. It's not so hard to beat the blue-haired college kids that can barely string two sentences together. And he leaned into confrontation. He began these campus appearances by, he would go around, he'd set up, and he'd start them out by making a generalized statement that dared the college kids to prove me wrong. In fact, if you look at the banner on his tent, I think across the top, I think it said, "Prove me wrong." That was his thing, prove me wrong. And so he would frame the debate. He would say, this is what we're going to talk about. And he had his factoids and his talking points memorized, ready to go. Fire these points off. Very easy to do, because when you frame the debate, when you choose the topic, you know in advance the kind of points that the kids are going to be making when they come up to the microphone, because they say the same things over and over and over. It would be like if somebody said, "Hey, Jake, let's go put you on a college campus and debate Israel, the Israel-Palestine conflict, and let's put you in front of a whole bunch of Zionists." I already know what they're going to be saying, because I've been talking about this for years. So it's not hard for me to think off the cuff when I've been saying the same stuff for years. All the kids are going to do is maybe say it in slightly different words with the same ideas, and so it'd be easy to destroy them. But now if you take maybe, say, a Jewish professor of history who knows more about historical points than I do, and he's got years of experience talking about this, and he comes up to the microphone, now we've got a challenge. Now we've got a real debate. But going after these college kids, that's not real debate. And so it gives this appearance for people like Shapiro, who is a gifted, smart guy. So is Charlie Kirk. I'm not saying he's a dummy. He's a smart guy. But it gives the appearance that they're better at debate or whatever than they are. Because you get to see not their full meetings with these kids online. You get to see their highlights, the best parts, their biggest gotchas, and when they own the libs and everything. I'm not saying it's not entertaining. It's just natural. We enjoy seeing someone we agree with dominate another person that we disagree with. So I'm just saying he was gifted in the sense that he was able to entertain the people who agreed with him. He knew how to bait his opponents. He knew how to draw them in, and how to politely humiliate them with his version of the facts. And of course, like I said, as years went on, he found that he could reach even greater stardom by couching all of his rhetoric in terms that tickled the ears of the Christian community that had embraced Trumpism. So when you take that, combine it with his soft-spoken demeanor, mostly, he didn't usually get flustered. He'd sit there and have a calm, rational debate. Made him seem a little more virtuous than maybe he was. But you understand this. People can be sly and cunning and even mean with that same kind of nice demeanor. You don't have to be raging and angry to be provocative and to be offensive. So when you watch The Substance, and I watched a lot of his stuff today. I've seen his stuff in the past, but I went back and watched a lot of it today just to refresh my memory of, what are his positions? What does he think? How does he conduct himself? And what you find when you look at it in more details, it's not so much that he's using careful persuasion to try and build relationships with the audience and help people see his way of seeing things and come to some understanding, so much as it's a way to own the libs, to satisfy the young alt-right base that has grown up in the last 10 years this alt-right base that has made him rich with their donations, you got to give them red meat. You got to take this person who's talking about transgender rights and smack them down. You got to take the person talking about this, smack them down. You got to take the Muslim that's out there saying, why can't you acknowledge that what Israel is doing is to the Palestinians is wrong? He's got to have his talking points, smack them down, shout them, or not shout, but speak over them. When they start to make a good point, you'll see very frequently Charlie Kirk will start talking fast, talk over them, drown them out with his own stuff, and then pivot away from their point because he knows, oh crap, they're actually on to something here. And that was a skill. So I'm not saying that he was unskilled. He was very good at what he did. The growth of Turning Point USA is a testament to that. But the growth was fueled by being divisive, by shoving that flag of his side of the culture war into the faces of these hapless opponents on college campuses. And to his supporters, this made him look brave. It made him look uncompromising, made him look, like in the later years, champion for Christ. But to everyone else, it just made him look kind of like a, pompous and toxic and divisive. So really, it's a matter of perception. I'm not telling you need to think one way or another about him. I'm just telling you what I think, how I saw him. I saw him as probably a genuinely decent person. He looked like a good, family man. The interactions I've seen, even though I think he was, I didn't find him to be a very polite or cordial person, even though he said things in a calm way. I thought his points were rather pointed and cutting and biting and insulting, designed to satisfy that young alt-right base that he had. But overall, I think he was probably a decent guy for all I know, compared to some other alt-right people out there who are actually not very nice people. He was just so loose with the facts during these campus debates. He would state absolute falsehoods as if they were undeniable facts. He would do it with an air of confidence that could disarm his opponents because they, on the fly, they're not familiar with these things. They can't say, well, these facts and statistics you're giving, you're just pulling out of thin air, or you're manipulating the evidence. They're not familiar enough to put it back. And so it looks like he's scoring points when what he's doing is doing like Donald Trump, where he's making up stuff as he goes. But he does it with such an air of confidence that it makes, his supporters aren't going to go back and say, let me go fact check and see if what he's saying is actually true. And if they did, they would find that a good deal of the points that he's making, the facts that he's presenting, are actually not legitimate. They're not valid. So let me give you an example. One of the issues that I have the biggest disagreement with Kirk over is his unwavering support for Israel's genocide of the Palestinians. It is a genocide that we're watching. Textbook, nightmarish genocide. He insisted over and over again that Israel, they're just defending themselves. They're innocent. The people of Gaza are responsible for what Israel was doing to them. It's not Israel's fault. They don't want to do this. Israel just wants to live in peace. He repeatedly asserted that the IDF was this moral army that never, ever, ever targeted Palestinian civilians, despite the undeniable evidence that we can all access, the proof, the videos that Israel has butchered tens of thousands of innocent civilians. Not to Charlie Kirk, though. He'll tell his audiences every campus he goes to, when the people on campus who are already hamstringed because you got Donald Trump in the White House cracking down on universities, pulling their funding, calling for the dismissal of university presidents wherever there is so-called anti-Semitic speech on campuses, which by definition, according to the Zionists, is disagreeing with the government of Israel, is anti-Semitism. Not being in favor of genocide makes you an anti-Semite. So you've got these pro-Palestinian people that get up to the mic, and he just shout them down with not shout, but speak over them, shut them down with his view of things. Israel is a moral army, is what he says. They are not purposely starving Palestinians in Gaza. That was one of his more recent things. This is outrageous. People say Israel is starving the Palestinians. That's absolutely not true. We've got innumerable humanitarian organizations, even nation states, that have come out and said that's exactly what they're doing. No matter what evil Israel committed, and this is going back over the last several years, no matter what Israel has done, from killing children to blowing up hospitals to shooting starving unarmed men and kids waiting in food lines, Charlie Kirk made the argument that everything bad that was happening was the fault of the Palestinians, not the fault of the one pulling the trigger. Some people in social media pointed out today that it's ironic, because if you take Charlie Kirk's own arguments that he uses to defend Israel, you could turn around and say that actually Charlie Kirk is responsible for himself getting shot, not the shooter. Now, I don't believe that, not one bit. I don't believe that Charlie Kirk is responsible for it. He has the right to say what he wants. He has the right to say things that either offend me or that I disagree with, and be free from political violence. So the shooter, whoever this shooter is, the shooter is responsible. Just like those doing the killing in Israel of the Palestinian civilians, they are the ones responsible, not the victims. It's not the Palestinians responsible for getting shot while they're waiting in line for food. Israel is responsible for that. And I found Charlie Kirk's unwavering defense of the state violence of Israel to be utterly reprehensible. And it was kind of emblematic of his general disregard for the feelings of the sufferings of others in a lot of other issues that he talked about. So I found it to be, despite him embracing and, in my opinion, taking advantage of the Christian community, I thought that was a very un-Christian way of conducting himself, blaming the victims of violence, supporting genocide, and so forth. Because it's so vile, so flagrant. I think that this put a target on him, a symbolic target. Now, like I said, as of this broadcast, we don't know yet who shot him. Republicans, including Donald Trump, are blaming the Democrats for this, saying that the shooter had to be a left-wing Democrat. And maybe that's true. We may find out that that's the case. I mean, it just makes more sense that it would be someone on the left killing someone on the right. It just seems to make more sense. I don't know, though. That may not be the case. But it actually wouldn't come as a surprise to me if we were to discover at some point that the motivation for the shooter had something to do with Kirk's antagonism toward the Palestinians and his support for Israel's genocide. I'm not saying that's what we'll discover. I hope very much, because that would, look really bad for the side of us who are, in favor of rights and safety and justice for the Palestinians. It'll make us look bad. So I hope that's not the case. Now there is, and I've seen it in the chat, and I've certainly seen it all over social media, a popular theory out there is that Israel carried out this assassination of Kirk because he was daring to ask questions about Israel. So I looked into that a little bit today, and I did see a few videos. For example, one, a podcast where he's talking to Megyn Kelly from Fox News, formerly of Fox News. I don't know if she's back with them or not, but where they were like, it's really not cool to call us anti-Semites for questioning some of the stuff that the government of Israel has done. And there was a little nuance there, but that's it. Beyond that, Charlie Kirk, to this day, was a just raving propagandist in favor of Israel and everything Israel is doing. There's, some quotes on attributed to, I forget the guy's name, who says, oh yeah, Charlie said that he's afraid that if he breaks with Israel, they'll kill him or something. So there's plenty of fuel for this conspiracy theory out there. And, it's a fair theory. I don't believe it's going to be, it's going to turn out to be that case. I think that we're just days away from knowing who shot him and what the motivation was. And so I'm kind of withholding my judgment on that, and not planting my foot firmly on one theory or another, because there just is not enough evidence out there for us to form any conclusions. But I strongly suspect that there will not be anything that links this to an assassination by Israel or the Mossad or anything like that, because it would just be so poorly executed that it would, you don't want there to be anything that would lead back. So we'll see. I'll keep an open mind. I keep an open mind. Anyway, I just don't think that killing Charlie Kirk was no more a form of justice for Palestinians than Israel's killing of Palestinians civilians is some kind of form of justice for the Israelis who were killed on October 7th. We just can't live in a society where we kill people like Charlie Kirk or anyone else because we disagree with the words that they speak, even if we find their words abhorrent. But this leads me into, I'm a step away from talking about Charlie Kirk specifically for just a minute. The atmosphere in America has been getting worse for years. And I've talked about this for years. I used to think things were getting pretty serious back when Obama was president. Things looked like they were falling apart, going downhill. And they were. But then Trump came along and said, hold my Diet Coke. Let me show you how it's done. And I'll just point out today, when you look between these two people, and I railed against Obama the entire time he was president, right? But today, Obama's message, when he tweeted out about this Charlie Kirk thing, he expressed sorrow for Kirk's family. Political violence has no place in America. He and Michelle are praying for the Kirk's family. Now, if you go and watch Trump's response, when he did a 4.5-minute video from the Oval Office, from the Resolute desk, and he repeatedly is attacking Democrats. The radical left is I've been telling you for years, it's the radical left. The radical left. Broad brushing. Who is this radical left? He's called Nancy Pelosi and everybody else the radical left. But then when you start saying the killing of Charlie Kirk is the responsibility of the radical left, and you think, who are the radical left? And Trump has defined in the past who they are, and it's pretty much, if you're a Democrat, you're the radical left. That is pretty insane. For a president of the United States from inside the White House to be sending a message out to all of America saying the Democrats killed Charlie Kirk. That is very, very divisive. It's intended to cause division. That's the purpose. You won't find another U.S. president in all of history, not even Lincoln, who I despise, who has been more divisive in their rhetoric than Donald Trump. You won't find it. He rage tweets on a daily basis. He encourages his followers to hate the radical left, to lay every problem in America at their feet, including all of the problems that he creates. But this is all fake. Donald Trump doesn't actually think these things. Donald Trump has been an ally of the Democrats for almost his entire life. We've got photos of him partying with Bill Clinton on his golf courses. We've got videos of him talking about how wonderful Bill and Hillary are. This is just like right up until he started running for president in 2015. Oh, Bill and Hillary, they're not just great politicians, but they're great people. I love them. They're good people. We've got decades of campaign donation receipts from Donald Trump to overwhelmingly to Democrats. Yeah, he donated to some Republicans, but not like he donated to the Democrats. There's an old article I've posted where he was asked who he donated money to for president back between Carter and Reagan. And he said, well, Carter. And they said, how much? And he said, I gave the maximum. And they said, well, would you give more? He said, yeah, I would give a lot more if I could. We've got him in recent years, before he ran for president, in recent years, talking about how if it was up to him, telling Larry King on Larry King Live, if it was up to me, nobody in America would have a gun. Telling, what was his name? I can't remember his name right now, from MSNBC, the journalist who's dead now. Anyway, in an interview, talking about how he's not just pro-abortion, he believes in partial birth abortion all the way through the end of the pregnancy, that has to be protected. This is Donald Trump. Now, did Steve Bannon help him figure out how to clean up that rhetoric and say the things that are appealing to the Republicans? Sure, yeah. But this idea that Donald Trump thinks that all of the people who still think the way he used to think up until, just a decade ago, that they're all the enemies of America and we have to, it's just ridiculous. So why is he doing this? Because like Charlie Kirk and a lot of the alt-right figures have found, there's a market, there's a surefire way to build up a loyal base of supporters, and that is to present yourself as a hero fighting against the common people's enemies. It's worked for despots around the world for quite a few years. This is not anything new. Divide and conquer. Have an enemy. The atmosphere of America for the last decade has felt like a pressure cooker, and I know a lot of you have felt that. I mean, set your politics aside. I don't care who you support, who you voted for. You have to admit, if you're old enough, now if you're, in your 20s, you probably have, don't know what I'm talking about. But if you're in your 40s or so, you probably look at America today and you don't recognize it. It's frightening. Something dramatically different has taken hold of our country. A feeling that was not like this when I was growing up. It wasn't like this in my 20s and 30s when I was involved in politics, running political campaigns. Very, very different. It's like, a pressure cooker, it's built up, and if you let a pressure cooker go long enough, the thing will explode. And that's how it feels to me, the state of America today. And under this current administration, just the discourse between him and J.D. Vance and all the different people, the way they frame everything is it's coarser, it's more combative. It's a style that thrives on dividing society, encouraging your own supporters to see your political opponents not as just people with differences of opinion, but seeing them not just as enemies, as threats to you and your family, as traitors to the country because they don't believe the same politics that you do. And we see this on the left and the right. A lot has changed since 2016. Think about it. If you remember the Obama years, we didn't have Black Lives Matter and Antifa shutting down highways and setting cities on fire. We've got a different kind of atmosphere. Political discourse was different. You could debate politics in a friendly way without demonizing your opponents. It wasn't that big of a... You had people like James Carville marrying, what was her name? James Carville, who ran, him and Paul Begala ran Bill Clinton's presidential campaigns. And he married, I keep thinking Madeline. If anyone remembers her name, you can put it in the chat. Yeah, he married, it was Madeline. Madeline who? Madeline... She's a Republican, worked for Bush. Mary Madeline? Yeah, Mary Madeline. It was Democrat, hardcore Republican. They got married. That's how it used to be. But can you imagine like some alt-right guy today getting married to a libtard woman? Or some libtard woman who sees, the magatard over here as anything but like a misogynist, a xenophobic, transphobic, just all of the labels, all the labels that just automatically get applied. We see things in an extreme way that we didn't used to do it this way. And so from 2015, 2016, getting worse, we saw a very predictable rise in society of extremist groups. Over on the left, you had BLM activists, you had and Antifa, which really isn't a leftist group. That's the Trump people really wanted everyone to believe that Antifa was left wing, but they're not. They're anarchists, not communists or anything like that. So they're not left wing. If anything, they're way to the right of of most Republicans. They want no government. They want anarchy. But still, radicals that were, usually Antifa was out there doing stuff in the name of, leftist social issues. And then on the right, we saw the rise of groups like the Proud Boys. We saw Christian nationalists. We saw the tiki torch wielding white supremacists marching in Charlottesville. The Jews will not replace us. So left and right start moving to the extremes, and that middle base of America gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And I feel like that's where me and a lot of you are, where it's not that we're in the middle where we don't have opinions one way or another, but we're not extreme. We're not on the radical fringes of these movements. It feels like everyone has embraced the language of militant confrontation, and we've lost the middle ground. That cultural glue that once allowed us to disagree but still live together in relative peace, it has thinned to the point that it's no longer holding us together.
I wanted to keep talking about Mary's...
Sorry, I don't know what that was. Oh, I do know what it was. It was cinema insomnia. Anyway, each side sees the other not just as wrong, but dangerous. And so we have this atmosphere that is ripe for violence right now. So why does this happen? Well, you can look to psychology to give us clues, because what's happening to America, this is not unique. It's happened many times, many countries over a span of many eras. It's happening right now in the world in different cultures. People don't just suddenly resort to violence for no reason. It doesn't just happen out of nowhere in some vacuum. What happens is that people first start feeling cornered. They feel unheard. They feel powerless, like they have no more control over their own government or their own community anymore. they feel like their rights are being taken away, they start to have strong feelings of fear in times of massive cultural or political upheaval. And then they find like-minded people. Because when you're in a state of fear or concern or whatever, it feels better to find a community where they say, you're not crazy, I feel the same thing. I'm not saying this is bad that people start to feel this way, because it's a natural psychological response to feel this way when there are big changes in society taking place. So if a person believes society is moving against them, if they feel that their values are under attack, if they hear constant rhetoric, either from the other side of the political aisle or from their own side, doesn't matter. If they keep hearing constant rhetoric about enemies and invasions, these are not Mexicans coming here because in the 90s we passed NAFTA legislation and and these global trade policies decimated the Mexican economy, and they have no jobs. They can either become, go to work for the drug cartels, or they can cross into America and pick tomatoes and send money home to their families. So we don't see them as just immigrants. We see them as druggies and rapists and invaders and terrorists. And so now we're justified in taking government officials, government agents, putting masks on them, sending them around to do warrantless snatch and grabs of random people off the street whose only crime is that they look Hispanic. Wait, and we'll just process them, and in the process, eventually we'll find out if they're U.S. citizens or not. Hopefully most of them are illegals, but if there's some, American citizens in there, that's just the price we pay. That's the attitude when you see these people, when you dehumanize them, when you see them as, these awful threats to America. So when you're hearing all of this rhetoric of enemies and invasions, and you hear from the White House, it's the radical left and they killed Charlie Kirk, that's when the more unhinged people, the more unstable people in society are more likely to rationalize violence as self-defense. We saw this with Edgar Madison Welch during the whole Pizzagate thing. I interviewed his, he's the guy who went up to Comet Ping Pong with the AR-15, chased the people out, shot the lock, trying to find the children to save them. I interviewed his fiance, talked to her for hours, and what I kept asking over and over is, what's the motivation? Why did he do? How could he believe this? Something that was just so. What was he thinking? And all she would say is each time, well, he listened to Alex Jones all day, like he always had Alex Jones on, and he truly believed that the Democrats were cannibalizing children, and that Comet Ping Pong was a place where they had a dungeon and they were keeping the kids trapped there. And he believed it so strongly, he felt it was his duty to go save them. So he ended up, he drove his Prius, from 45 minutes down the road where from me, drove up to Washington, D.C., got himself arrested, spent years in prison, got out. And then eventually, not that long ago, I think even maybe it was this past year, sometime in the not too distant past, he just a random traffic stop, but he got mouthing off and it escalated and he ended up getting shot and killed. But anyway, what I'm saying is, and he had been going through a lot of trouble. He had split from his wife. He's having custody issues, having trouble at work. He just had a lot of trouble. And I suspect, I don't know this, I don't have proof of this, but in talking with some of the family and people that knew him, I think that he was just vulnerable. He was in a vulnerable state. Didn't feel like he had control. Didn't feel like, he couldn't get his custody of his child. He's losing control over his finances. And here's a chance for him to exert some control and go take a stand against these enemies that are hurting children. So I think that he had good intention. I don't think that he was trying to do something bad. I don't think he was some guy who's like a school shooter where he's like, I'm going to go, shoot up some kids. I think he was trying to do good. I think he truly believed he was doing something good. But the thing is, he was radicalized by the extreme rhetoric coming from QAnon and just the alt-right in general that was big into that save the children, save the children. So you start out with some germs of truth about, James Alefantis up at Comet Ping Pong was a freak. So were the people running the place, the people connected to them. Very high-profile Democrat donors connected to Alefantis. These were some really messed up people. And, so I'm not saying that there's no evidence, but to take that and jump into, well, they're harvesting adrenochrome in the dungeon of Comet Ping Pong so the Democrats can use the adrenochrome to lengthen their lives, live beyond, their normal, natural lives. I mean, that's just insane. Doesn't seem insane, though, when you've been radicalized. The way you get radicalized is you keep hearing the rhetoric over and over from people you trust or people you end up giving your trust to. Psychological warfare, radicalizing people. And I believe that Israel is playing a huge role right now in radicalizing America. I think the CIA is radicalizing America. I don't think that this stuff that's happening is just coincidental. I've been saying the same thing for years. I believe that we are in the midst of the greatest psychological warfare operation in world history, and it's being directed at the United States. And the way they're achieving it is they're not just radicalizing the left in a very neutral, as fact-based and unbiased as I can be. If I had to pick between the Democrats right now and the Republicans and decide who the crazier one is, Republicans win it hands down. They have gone batshit insane. They have gone nuts. They have abandoned every principle and value they used to believe just 10 years ago. Are they going after Trump? Are the Republicans going after Trump because he's not releasing the Epstein files? No. Trump's doing everything in his power to protect an intelligence operation that was based on having children raped by powerful people. And what the hell? Where are all the QAnon people and all the Save the Children people? Where did they all go? They're now defending Donald Trump instead of putting his feet to the fire and demanding accountability. They've gone insane. The people who were like, we're going to elect Trump because we want no more wars. And then when he goes and carries out stealth bomber strikes, unprovoked, illegal, unconstitutional acts of war against Iran, not for the benefit of America, but for the benefit of freaking Israel. Where are all of the Republicans who said we're electing Trump because we're against war? I'll tell you where they are. They're on his rear end, licking his tail and praising him for his 4D chess actions. They're brainwashed. They're totally brainwashed. You know, if we were to go back to 2016 or 2017 when it was Antifa out there burning things down, I'd say, all right, maybe on the balance, it's the left that's the radical nuts that, outweighing things. But right now, in the state of things in America right now, it's not the Democrats that are out there doing all this stuff. It's not the Democrats defending Jeff Epstein's network. It's not the Democrats that are talking about turning Gaza into a Riviera. Now, I'm not excusing the Democrats. I have no more respect for the Democrat Party than I do the Republicans. I think that both of these parties have gone way far away from their roots. Today's Democrat Party, I don't even recognize it compared to what they were back when I was younger and fighting against the Democrat Party. I put my money where my mouth was. I didn't just oppose the Democrat agenda. I got in there and found the best candidates I could, and I worked for them, running their political campaigns. I got a bunch of Republicans elected. That's back when Republicans were kind of acting like Republicans, but they just got further and further away. They became so pro-war. After 9/11, they became so hateful toward the Muslim community in general, toward the countries in the Middle East. I'm like, how can you not see that you're being manipulated by Israel into doing all of this? That's how it is. And you've got the power players at the top who don't give a damn if you're Republican or Democrat. It works out really well for them to split people into two big factions and keep them fighting each other so that they can do whatever they want without consequence, without having to worry about attention on them. You think with everything going on today, in the last couple of weeks, all of the smoke screens and all of the things that Trump has started doing, sending warships down off the coast of Venezuela, threatening to invade Venezuela, changing the name of the Department of Defense to the Department of War, and telling Chicago, you're about to find out why we're called the Department of War. I mean, what the hell? Do you think that the attention is on the power figures who are Epstein clients? No, this is all a big distraction. That's why you do it. You divide the people against themselves, and then the true evil gets away with it because the attention is not on them. And it shocks me that MAGA does not see that Donald Trump is trying to distract them from the Epstein circle. Why has the Republican Party, just given the fact alone that Donald Trump sent his personal attorney in to meet with Ghislaine Maxwell and moved her to a better facility and is talking about the potential of pardoning her, a known, proven child sex trafficker? Why has the Republican Party not said, Donald Trump, there are lines you do not cross, and you just crossed it, and we are done with you? When I was born, I don't remember Nixon, but he was president when I was born. And the Republican Party, after they found out that what Nixon had done to cover up for the Watergate burglars, the CIA operatives that went in and did what they did during the presidential campaign, the Republicans went to Nixon and said, the best thing you can do is resign the presidency, be the first president in history, go down in flaming humiliation. Do it for the good of the country, because we are going to impeach you and we are going to remove you from office. So you can either leave voluntarily or we're going to throw your ass out and humiliate you for all time. The Republicans went to their own president and did that. And here we are. Look at everything Trump is doing, and they just don't criticize him. In the chat, I just saw this. Another World says, MTG and Massey seem like legitimate, decent Republicans to me. I probably disagree with many of their positions, but I'd support them on the areas where we agree enough to work with them. Thomas Massey is probably the most ideologically correct member of the U.S. House, kind of like Rand Paul would be the most constitutional in the Senate. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a mixed bag. She's a nutcase with all of so much of what she's done, but I respect her for having the dignity and the courage to break with Trump on some things, including on Israel and on the Epstein stuff. So good for her. I've never been a fan of MTG, but she's she, at least on these issues, we're in agreement. So I think that's great. She's one of the ones out there today that's screaming and hollering about Democrats, you're responsible for what happened to Charlie Kirk. So it is mixed, but whatever. Anyway. And it's not just Trump. I know I'm talking about Trump, but that's because he's been there. The Trump era has been going on for almost a decade now. But I could say the same thing if we were back in the Obama years. We saw things like the White House bathed in the colors of the LGBT rainbow flag. And that was shocking to see that. It was a culture war thing. Doesn't matter what your personal views are, to go in and drape the White House in the gay pride flag colors was divisive. It was just a stupid public relations mistake. Because it's gonna outrage a big segment of the country that doesn't like these political changes. Then you had the actual passage of gay marriage, went up to the Supreme Court. Other major changes were happening during the Obama years that were very alarming to Republicans, and the fear of loss, the changes in society. This is the stuff that drove a lot of people to vote for Trump in the first place. Remember who was running against Trump in 2016? The guy that everyone expected was, supposed to get it was Jeb Bush. The Bush dynasty was going to continue with Jeb. He certainly believed he was going to be the nominee. But the Republican Party knew this is just going to be more neocon bullcrap that we saw from George W. and from George H.W. So they rejected Jeb Bush in favor of Trump because Trump was saying the things they wanted to hear. I knew he wasn't going to do it. And I was, on the rooftop shouting, guys, don't fall for this crap. He's not actually going to do this stuff. He's just telling, he's a showman. This is his whole history. I'd read his books. I was aware of his previous two attempts to run for president prior to 2016. I knew Donald Trump as a politician. People didn't want to hear it. They didn't want to listen. People were scared, though. But when Trump took power, what happened was what we had seen, this cultural shift during the Obama years to the left. Well, when Trump took over, there was an alarming shift in the other direction, and that scared Americans on the other side of the political spectrum. And that fueled their protests, their attempts to take Trump down no matter what, no matter how extreme they had to get. And so here, during the Biden years, I was hoping that swinging pendulum was going to settle back down and we were going to get back to some normalcy. And I think that we did. Biden was so dopey-headed that he didn't do a whole lot one way or another. He was ineffective when it came to the economy, and he was certainly facilitating the actions of Israel. But there weren't a whole lot of major things that he was doing. He was kind of a placeholder president, kind of like George H.W. Bush, kind of like Gerald Ford. You don't hear a whole lot of what they did because there wasn't a whole lot that they actually did. But Trump got back in office, and man, he's making his second term is making that first term look like nothing. We are in America today undergoing seismic changes, demographic shifts, cultural battles, economic instability, like the likes of which we have not seen in generations. And we're now seeing very aggressive pushes to remake society under this second administration into this kind of weird Christian nationalistic society where, it's not supposed to work like that. We're supposed to be neutral. We've got U.S. troops walking the streets of Washington, D.C., allegedly there to stop crime, which I've already done an episode showing you the crime statistics, that this is total baloney, that even though D.C. does have a high crime rate, it's nowhere near what a lot of U.S. cities are, and that it's actually come down in recent years. But still, it's okay. We can deploy the Republicans who are during the Obama years. He's going to declare martial law. He's going to put U.S. military. There was the, whatever that training, I can't remember the name of that training program during the Obama years. Was it Operation something? Not Gladio. Maybe someone will remember in the chat, where they were using U.S. troops in a couple of U.S. cities for training. And that was like the end of the world. Republicans were like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is the beginning of martial law. Well, now we actually have U.S. troops deployed, and we have threats from Donald Trump to use his Department of War to put boots on the ground in cities all around the country. We've got these masked thugs working for ICE, and they are thugs. I don't know if you've seen this. I saw a video just a few days ago of ICE was grabbing some people, and as usual, you've got bystanders on the side yelling, hey, let go of him, all this. And one of them was yelling, put that gun down, put that gun away, yelling at ICE. So this ICE, big guy, puts his gun away, and he walks over to this bystander who's not in the way of it. He's not in the way at all. He's not impeding anything. He's not interfering. He's just standing off to the side. ICE comes over and smacks him, just hits him and knocks him down, and then just keeps walking. That is what is happening in America today. We have got these stormtroopers, unaccountable, acting however they want to, and Republicans should be outraged at this. They were certainly outraged at forces out on the street after Katrina and after the Boston Marathon bombing. But as long as it's Trump, it's okay. We can deploy the ICE and the military and everything, and that's okay. And that hypocrisy sickens me. The Republican Party is morally bankrupt. They've been compromised. They've been taken over. So for some people out there, they see, oh yeah, all this, it inspires hope. We're getting better. But that's a fraction of society. Most Americans, they're feeling fear. They're worried about all of this weaponization happening. They see a demagogue in the White House using inflammatory rhetoric. So last night, and this is absolutely true, true story. Last night before bed, I was talking with my wife about how my understanding, I was a history major, my understanding of history is at odds with what I'm seeing play out in America right now, or what I have been seeing. Because in every other society that I've studied, where there's been such sweeping political and social change as what we have been seeing in America lately, there was always the rise of violence. And I've not been seeing that since Trump took office. Not much violence in response to the ICE raids and the troops and everything, the striking Iran, the Epstein stuff. And I was saying, I don't get it. Because I was expected to have seen a lot more, whether it's shootings or the Kenosha style riots or more attempts on Trump's life, whatever. I said, where is this? Why is this not following the pattern? But I said before we went to sleep, I said, I believe it's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet, but it's going to catch up. And then the next day we have this killing of Charlie Kirk. And unfortunately, I believe it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. So what does this specific event mean? What can it foretell? Or, I think already Republican lawmakers are calling for harsh crackdowns, demanding retribution. They're using Kirk's death as a rallying cry. And just recently, remember, Trump had proposed stripping the right to bear arms away from anyone in America who identifies as transgender. And I think that's insane. Now, listen, I'm not defending. I've talked many times in the past. I've looked at the statistics. I've looked at the studies. I've actually read the entries about gender dysphoria in the DSM-4 and then the 5. I believe that these people have a form of mental illness. I understand that. But to say if you identify as transgender, you cannot own a gun in America, doesn't matter if you've never committed a crime, made a threat. That's like red flag laws on Godzilla level steroids. A U.S. president proposing to take gun rights away from entire groups of people who have committed no crimes. That's insane. That's frightening. If Barack Obama had said that we're going to take, I'm proposing that we just take the right to own guns away from whatever, from people who identify as militia members. You know the outcry there would be on the right over that? But do you hear a peep from Republicans? Barely anything. Fortunately, the NRA had the good sense to come out and say, Donald Trump, you've gone a little too far on this. We don't support banning transgenders from owning guns. That's not right. That violates the U.S. Constitution. Now, if it turns out that this shooter of Charlie Kirk in any way was like either transgender or advocate for transgender stuff, you can bet that there's going to be a push to do just that. But remember, guys, if we have a precedent set where a U.S. president can unilaterally defy the Constitution and somehow, it can't stick because these are inalienable rights. These are not rights that Trump can give. These are not rights that Trump can take away. We have them because we are human beings. These are our natural rights. But if he tries to impose this, what's going to stop him from next saying, if you're anti-Semitic, you speak out against Israel, you don't have the right to own a gun? Where does it stop? He's already suggested that if you're college students, you're pro-Palestinian. He's already deporting them, but that if you're pro-Palestinian, you're a terrorist. You think he can say transgenders can't have guns, but he can't also say if you're pro-Palestinian, you can't have a gun? This is a despot. He's mad with power. And I think he's going to continue as he ages and gets worse and feels more extreme, whatever it takes to divert attention away from Epstein. I think he's going to do whatever he wants. He's going to continue to impose his tyrannical one-man will on the people of the United States, regardless of whether it violates our rights or not. And that phrase, whether it violates rights or not, that comes from Trump himself. If you don't believe me, go back and look at that video footage from his first term after one of the mass shootings. They were talking about how you have to go. They were talking about red flag laws, how you have to go to court to get an order to take guns away from someone. And Mike Pence was sitting there saying that. And Donald Trump said, I believe that we should just take people's guns away first and worry about their due process later. That's Donald Trump, the same guy who told Larry King, if it were up to me, nobody would own a gun. So Republicans, please stop cheering this guy on. Please stop acting like dim-witted, brainwashed automatons. Pull your dignity out of your rear ends or wherever you've tucked it away. Take your gonads out of your wives' purses and stand up and be men again. Stop bowing down to this tangerine tyrant and take a stand for what you used to take a stand for when a Democrat was in office. Man, we have... did Trump come along and RFK put a bunch of estrogen in our water or something? What is going on? I don't get it. I don't understand it. I don't understand the inconsistency in principles and values, how people can say, I believe in this when a Democrat's in office, but if a Republican's in office, I don't care. Whatever. I need to shut up on this. Meanwhile, you got the Democrats over there. They're condemning the violence that took place today, but they're demonizing Republicans, blaming them for shooting the shootings, saying, well, it's because you don't support more restrictive gun laws. So both sides are using this moment as an excuse for finger pointing. And if history is any guide, and I believe it always is, we could see an escalating cycle of reprisals. Rhetorical at first, but then turning physical. For every shooting there is on one side, there's going to be calls for retaliation against that side by the other. And if that cycle continues, what happens is the humanity that we have inside us gradually disappears because violence begets violence. And if you're not alarmed, go to Twitter right now and look up, for example, go find Barack Obama's tweet that he's like, wishing the Kirk family well. Go look at the comments there. At least when I looked earlier today, the Republicans are going nuts. Oh, this is all your fault. This is your fault, Obama. And it's, we're sick and tired. We're going to take up arms. Like there's a lot of violent speech in there. We cannot survive as a society and certainly can't survive as a country if we continue down this path. Ladies and gentlemen, our political disagreements are always going to be here. We are always going to have disagreements in society. They disagreed back during the days of our founding fathers. But they figured out how to compromise and get something that can work for both sides, even if it's not exactly what one side or the other wants. Because we're a democratic republic, we're always going to have back and forth, give and take in our political system. You can't always have it your way. Not when we have a society that has such diverse differences of opinion. A constitutional democracy like ours can't function if every disagreement that we have with our political opponents, we treat like some kind of war. It's not war. What we need to do right now is to have a collective pause. We need our leaders on both sides to step back from the edge, remind their followers in the different parties that our opponents are still fellow Americans. They are not mortal enemies. So we need to start with words, demagoguery, like what we heard in Trump's video today about the radical left being responsible for Kirk's death. That fuels more violence. We need to calm our language down. We need to exercise some empathy. We need to commit to cooling things down. I'm not saying we have to agree. Far from it. Charlie Kirk himself was proof that even though disagreement runs really deep in the country, we can be disagreeable without engaging in violence. He did that. He went around the country. He went to these campuses. He stated his beliefs, he took his positions, and he didn't have some group of Proud Boys or anyone to go around with sticks to beat the people into agreement. If you agreed with him, fine. If you didn't, fine. That was, to his credit, a good example. The way he did it, his rhetoric, I think, was divisive, but, and we can get to that. We work on that. But disagreement does not have to equal dehumanization. You can argue fiercely for your values. You can oppose someone else's politics with all your energy without seeing them as enemies unworthy of life, like whoever this shooter is. And so that's the challenge before us, to rebuild an American culture of acceptable disagreement where political conflict can be passionate but peaceful, where debates happen in legislatures, town halls, living rooms, without the presence of a gun barrel pointing at either side. So it starts with each of us toning down our rhetoric in social media. So I want to end with this. Charlie Kirk's death is a tragedy because of what it represents. It's not just that some guy lost his life. It's that the murder of Charlie represents, at least to me, the collapse of our ability to manage conflict without violence. If we respond to this event with more division, like I'm seeing in social media right now, then the shooter's bullet will have ripped deeper into the American fabric than it did into Charlie's neck. It's going to do that kind of traumatic damage to us as a society. So we can choose a different path. We can choose to reject violence. We can choose to reject the demagoguery coming from Trump and Vance and their kind of rhetoric. We can reject anything from the Democrats that is the least bit similar to that. We can reject the justification that we hear for from people like Charlie Kirk for Israel's genocide. We can reject the rhetoric of the Democrats who label everybody as racists, who hate blacks and women if you don't agree with them on their social legislation. So anyway, we can talk to people like citizens and not like combatants. Healing society won't be quick. We didn't get to this point overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. Won't be easy. But if we don't start now in reversing this trend, we may soon find ourselves in a country where political disagreement carries the risk of something much worse than a guy getting shot. We could be looking at society-wide bloodshed. So we owe it to ourselves, to our children, to the memory of every person who has died by gun violence here in America. And we have an escalating number of people getting killed by gun violence. We owe these people our best effort to find a better way forward than the path that we're on now. Anyway, that's all I have to rant about tonight. I'm now stepping off my soapbox. Sorry. I know I was up there for a while. Let me go back and thank the people that gave donations. Again, Dennis gave a donation at the top of the show. Thank you so much. He said, "Good evening, everyone." Dennis is a very nice guy. John Benson gave a donation, said, "Does your gut tell you a pay for hire murder?" John, I don't think so. I don't. Who knows what it's going to be, but the pattern is usually somebody upset, somebody isolated, somebody upset about what happened. I would not be surprised if the person who did this traveled from out of town to do it. I certainly don't believe that the shooter was like a local from Orem, Provo. Could be from Salt Lake, could be somebody from Utah that did it. But I mean, it's like 95, 98% Mormon in this part of Utah. I'm telling you, I lived there, clean as can be, You don't find trash on the streets, or at least you didn't back then. People are kind and cordial everywhere you go. A lot of people leave their doors unlocked. It's that kind of place. Um, and the students at UVU are generally pretty good people. But there was, starting around 2012 forward, there was a rapid increase in LGBT and transgender activism in Utah, partly as a result of back when the state of California, before gay marriage became nationwide law, California had something called Prop 8. They were going to vote to define marriage as being between only a man and a woman, make it state law. This is back when Gavin Newsom was still mayor of San Francisco. He's governor of California now, and he's going to be one of the leading candidates from the Democrats for president in the next election. But anyway, back then, Gavin Newsom, in 2006, 2007, when I was living there, I actually did some consulting work for him, not by choice. I didn't get to choose my clients back then, but he was one of them. So I've spoken with Gavin Newsom. I think he's a real piece of junk myself. But anyway, California had this Prop 8, and the Mormon Church encouraged its members to get heavily involved in trying to pass this California legislation in favor of declaring marriage as being between a man and a woman. In California, Mormons are actually the second largest religion after Catholics, second largest like church denomination, and certainly number one in Utah. Well, this resulted in huge backlash for the Mormon Church, and just got a whole lot of bad media, lots of attacks from prominent people. And so the church is very, very PR conscious. And so they put a lot of effort into trying to reform this image of being anti-gay. And so Utah, which is a strongly red state, huge, massive red state, they put a big effort into trying to show that they, while they may not agree with gay marriage, they are, they love gay people just as much as they do anyone else. And so there was a whole lot of activity designed to embrace the gay community. And this actually led to a pretty rapid rise. Suddenly, a lot of people, including a lot of Mormon kids, started coming out saying, well, I'm gay. And it became almost fashionable. You had bands like the Killers, which was, at least the lead singer was Mormon, and other groups, Imagine Dragons, some other groups that are holding concerts there that are kind of like, we support diversity and whatever. And so kind of the Mormon Church's effort to show that they are, have a Christ-like love of all people, including gays, it kind of backfired on them and led to a big rise in gay activism in Utah. I don't know if she still is the mayor there, but at least until recently, the mayor of Salt Lake City is a lesbian, or was a lesbian. I don't know if it's the same person still. But Salt Lake City is hardcore blue. You still have a lot of red state Mormons there, but it's turned blue. So you do have in the state of Utah a lot of gay and transgender activism. And it's been a challenge for church-owned places like Brigham Young University, which is adjacent to Orem there. So anyway, I see it as a possibility that it was possibly an LGBT activist. I could see it as possibly some pro-Palestinian activist. But just like we found with the kid who tried to shoot Donald Trump, he had been pro-Trump. He was a gun owner, or at least was very skilled with a gun. So will we find out that it was pay for hire murder? I don't believe so. I don't know though. So I keep that as I keep my mind open. I don't know, but I lean away from it. I think it's less likely. I think that whoever did it, if they shot from 200 yards away and they were that accurate, one shot hit them in the throat, just inches away, I assume they were aiming for higher up, a headshot, but I don't know. That's somebody that's got some skill. So that's why it seems less likely to me that it's just some random disgruntled person. This is somebody who could possibly end up being like a pro-gun right-wing person. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it seems less likely that that's the case. But as far as gun for hire, I don't think so. Thank you, John. Don Ward gave a generous donation. He said, always love your commentary and insights. Thank you. And I received, sorry, let me expand my screen here. Received my Blackstone ball cap a couple months ago and love it. Hey, great. Thank you so much, Don. If anyone is interested in a Blackstone ball cap, you can get them at blackstonemerch.com. Sorry for that shameless plug. Thank you so much, Don. That was a generous donation. Ironman Bill Denkinus, he gifted a membership to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel membership. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you, my good friend. Bill has been a loyal supporter of Blackstone Intelligence for years now. And a doggone fine chap. Philip Blair mentioned BOIU used to torture gay students with electricity. Seriously, there is some truth to that. I mean, there's a lot more to the story than that, but in essence, there is truth to what you were saying. Pedro asked, that's farther than the Trump shot? I don't know, because they're still speculating about exactly where the shot was from. There is the one video that's out there that I saw earlier of a person in dark clothing laying down on one of the buildings. And I had if I had not had to switch over here and used OBS, I could put a picture up of the campus. In fact, let me see if I'm able to do it. Bear with me just a second. I have not looked into how to do this on OBS, but let me see here if I can figure this out. How do I add a photo here? Scene filters. Oops, sorry, I'm switching here, but that's not gonna do it. No, I'm not trying to add a scene. Does anybody remember how to add a photo? I don't know. Anyway, it's not a big deal. But I was gonna show a picture of the campus so you could see the location of where they think the shooter was at. But I've not familiarized myself yet with these OBS tools, so I don't know how to add it in. Yeah, it's not that important. But anyway, they think it's about 200 yards away. So if that's the case, that may be a little farther away than the guy that took the shot at Trump. Um, yeah, Regal says one eyewitness said multiple people tried to confess immediately afterwards so as to give cover for the shooter to escape. That's a possibility. It's also possible that it's just not correct information. I was surprised at how many eyewitnesses. I watched a lot of videos today after the shooting of people who were there. Some of them were on the second row. There was a group of 3 or 4 girls and 2 parents who were talking about what they saw. And all of them said they very clearly saw him get hit in the chest and had a flow of blood out of his chest. And they were right up there and they were talking about it. And then they said that the old guy, someone had pulled his pants off and he was there in his Mormon garment bottoms. Mormons wear an undershirt, a white undershirt, and a pair of like knee-length white boxers as a religious clothing. And so I looked at it, and that's not the guy. The guy has just got light-colored shorts on, and it's very clear that Charlie Kirk was shot in the neck, not in the heart. They kept saying he was shot in the heart. So these were eyewitnesses, and it was one after another after another. And I found that back during the Las Vegas investigation that a lot of people claimed to see things that they didn't see. And so that's why in court, eyewitness testimony is not taken very seriously unless you can vet it some other way, because people's memories, what they see in the moment, especially in a stressful moment, your mind plays tricks on you and shows you things. So early on, were there people, if I saw the videos that had multiple people saying, oh yeah, I did it, then I'd believe it more. But in the absence of that, I would just say it's equally possible that that's just rumor rather than fact. I don't know though. There are certainly weird things that happen, like with the Vegas shooting. There was the woman who was telling them before the shooting happened, "You're all going to die tonight," and that was initially covered by the media, and then suddenly, nobody's going to talk about that. So there are abnormalities. So I'm open to anything. I definitely have the conspiracy mind to where I look for these things. More often than not, they turned out to be not so conspiratorial. There often is something, even with the attack on Trump early on, it was, oh yeah, how did he get there? The cops had to be in and on it and all this stuff. And then, eventually we got to the truth, and the truth was not flattering for the MAGA side. And so they dropped all the theories and just kind of moved on from there. The only conspiracy theory they held on to was that Trump was shot in the ear, which is baloney. If he was nicked at all by an actual bullet, it was barely a flesh wound. More likely than not, he was just tagged with some of the shrapnel from the teleprompter that was hit, that was right next to him, and that made his ear bleed a little bit. I mean, you look at pictures of him, there's no damage to it, no scarring, there's no chunk of his ear taken out. If he'd been hit with a bullet, I think we'd see some damage. But boy, he had that tampon-sized thing on the side of his head. Make sure everybody knew during the Republican National Convention, he had been shot, and I'm here for you. God preserved me so I could come and save the world. Freaking Donald Trump. Anyway. R Factor, thank you so much, R Factor, for that donation. Very generous of you. R Factor's been here for a good while too. Pedro Silva, thank you for your donation. Says, thank you for being a sane voice on the right. I've been following for what it feels more than 5 years. I'm left wing, but appreciate you. Here's my first donation. Woohoo! Thank you. Round of applause for Pedro for that donation and kind words. Thank you, Pedro. I appreciate you so much. Been following a while. I try not to be. I know that I skew politically. I skew right on a lot of things, including a lot of social issues. But and there's not a whole lot politically where I'm like left on. I couldn't even tell you what I may be left wing on, other than just principles and values and things. But I don't have any problem. I love associating with. In fact, I would say that I have more Democrat friends in my personal life than, in fact, I know it. I know I have more Democrat friends than I do Republican friends. Used to not be that way, but I enjoy talking with people that I have differences of opinion with. I really enjoy that. I hate that my neighbor across the street moved away to Boston a few years ago because I like talking with him. He's hardcore left wing liberal, big pro-abortion, all kinds of stuff. But we would sit here in my backyard around the, I've got a fire pit. We'd sit there with a couple drinks and just talk for hours about stuff. And I really enjoyed that. So anyway, you're right at home, Pedro, if you and I don't see eye to eye politically. No problem here, my friend. Makes you that much more interesting. Rose says, but you have empathy, right, Jake? I in general, I do. I'm not sure what thing you're specifically talking about. Oh, then he grew a new ear like a lizard can spawn a new tail. Oh yeah, remember the tools that sported the pads on the ear and support? Yeah, you remember the Republican convention when he came out with that? And the next session, you got all these people in the audience that went out and got their great big things. I swear. And that's nothing compared to, have you guys seen the pictures of the Republicans at Trump rallies wearing diapers outside their clothes? And the signs that say real men wear diapers? Because Donald Trump has been, seen with a lot of padding under those pants from time to time that leads a lot of people to believe that he sometimes wears adult diapers. That's crazy. In my most hardcore days of supporting Ronald Reagan when I was young, I never would have thought, well, if Reagan wears adult diapers, I'll show my support for him by me going out in a diaper. I don't get it. I don't recognize and I would certainly not do like the Trump supporters and Vance supporters that were carrying around the fake semen of J.D. Vance's semen. How disgusting. Anyway, hey, Marjorie Foster, here's another first-time donation from a left-leaning fan. Yahoo! You know what? People are going to start to think that I've gone hardcore left or something. Now people are going to call me a libtard because all my friends are left-leaning. That's okay. I've been called a little bit worse than that. And I confess, I used to call people libtards all the time. Now, it's not like I've become a better person. Now I just say magatard sometimes. I try not to because I know it's not right. I know it's not right. But it is hard to resist sometimes when you see things like, grown men wearing adult diapers to express their political support. This is beyond me. I don't recognize that this world anymore. How do you own the libs by wearing a diaper. I don't get it. I don't get it. Anyway, Marjorie, thank you so much. It's so kind of you. Especially when you're a first-time donor, it's probably not easy trying to figure out how to set up your, payment and everything the first time. I think that's probably something that discourages a lot of people from making donations, is that it's not convenient to do it. But anyway, thank you so much. Flick Off. Good to see you, Flick Off. Joining late. Have you given your opinion on if you think it was a professional hit? Yeah, I'm at this point, Flick Off. I don't know. I tend to think not. I don't think it's likely myself, but I'm open to the possibility. I just don't like. In years past, I'd speculate and say, "Oh yeah, I think it's this," and then after the show, I'd think, well, probably not, because this and this. I'm just too much in flux until I've got enough information to base a solid belief on. So I'm still in the I just don't know category. Whoever did it is skilled, and whoever did it planned it out well in advance. This wasn't a spur of the moment thing. And I think it's possible that it was somebody who wasn't even from that area. If it were me, if I wanted to carry out something like that, you take a look at Charlie Kirk's schedule. You see where he's scheduled to go, because they put these dates out in advance, and you look to see where you're most likely to have success. And that's one of the things that Stephen Paddock was doing, was shopping around in the months, many months in advance of the Vegas festival, looking around at different hotels. In fact, he had booked multiple locations around the venue for those specific dates. He had multiple hotel rooms booked. But what I would do is I'd look and see what Kirk's schedule was, and then look to see where the most favorable options are. And because Orem has such a low crime rate, you can also look and see, well, with past events, what's the police presence like? And they had a very small police presence there. So that if you could look at, go there in advance, look and find out in advance if there's a way to scale the building, get up on the roof, a way to egress quickly and get out of there without having to worry about going through a police checkpoint or something, then you just think about it strategically. So anyway, I don't think it was like Mossad or something like that. If it was, have I recognized everyone here that has made a donation? I don't want to draw this out, keep you guys here forever, because I know it's late. It's about getting close to 1:30. I think that I've recognized everyone that has made a donation. Thank you all. I was not going to even ask for donations in this show. I thought it might be a little tasteless to be talking about Charlie Kirk being shot, and then normally in my shows up here on the chat, I set a goal for the number of super chats I'd like to get and stuff like that, but I thought maybe it would be in poor taste to do that. But I'm grateful to those of you who chipped in anyway. Thank you so much. Cicero says, we came into the world in a nappy and we'll leave the world in one too. No shame or pride in that one. That's true. I used to tell my kids when they were teenagers, you just wait. One day you're going to be changing my diapers. I'm going to make you pay. I changed all your diapers for years. You're going to be changing mine one day. Which is probably why most of them have moved out of state. Anyway, Flick Off was saying, I was thinking more likely a paid hitman by some Nepo baby groiper. Could be. There's a lot of extremism out there. But they hit with one shot. I mean, it was an impressive shot. I don't think there was wind or anything, but still, from that distance, I don't know. Do you think for yourself, says, my empathy goes out to many who have fallen into the LGBT thing, especially children. So is that evil? If I question and feel bad for them, my empathy is opposite of most. I think that we all have our own experiences. Where we are born, the environment we grow up in, the influence of our parents and extended family, the influence of our community, if we belong to any particular religion, that influence. If we don't belong to any particular religion, there's that influence. There's so many factors that shape us into who we are. And it doesn't work for someone to look at me and say, Jake, you are wrong because you are against abortion, or you are wrong because you are for abortion. You know, if you had my life and you grew up in my circumstances with my influences, you would probably think the same thing I do. It's kind of like blaming a Muslim born in Saudi Arabia for being Muslim. Oh, you're a Muslim. Well, guess what, Mr. Christian Evangelist? If you had been born in Riyadh, guess what you would be? You would be Muslim too, by no fault of your own. So this judgment, the way we pass judgment on each other for beliefs, is really, when you really examine it, it's unfair. It's just not justified. We're almost programmed outside of our control. I think that we have far less control than we think we do. I won't go down that rabbit hole with you right now, but so are you bad for thinking one thing or another about the LGBT stuff? I don't think so. No, it's not my opinion. I have a diverse opinion on all of the LGBT stuff based on my own experiences. Like I have, because of past religious beliefs, I thought marriage should be between a man and a woman. However, because of my libertarian, a lot of my libertarian political ideology, I'm not libertarian, but I've got a lot, I lean libertarian. I thought, well, when the whole gay marriage thing was being debated, my position was, I think we're going the wrong direction. We shouldn't be legalizing gay marriage. What we should be doing is getting the government out of marriage completely. I don't think there should be recognition by the state of heterosexual marriage or homosexual marriage. I think the state should keep its nose out of the issue. I don't think there should be tax incentives for one way or the other. I think that we should just be free people to make our decisions. And as long as we're not infringing on the rights of other people, and as long as there's no government incentive that incentivizes, if we're getting, say, for example, tax breaks because we have a heterosexual marriage, just hypothetically, then that would be wrong, because you're using the government to push one social unit over another, and that would be wrong, in my opinion. I think that when it comes to marriage, in the day and age we live in, I don't see. I think that the argument that, well, it's going to make society devolve if you allow there to be legal marriage between gays. The problem I see with that is, first and foremost, there is such a there has been such a high divorce rate among heterosexuals. I feel like before you go worrying about how gay marriage is going to destroy everything, maybe figure out how to stop all of the rampant divorce among heterosexual marriages. I'm not saying I don't see the problems. I just don't think that marriage should be determined by our government. I just don't see the place for government in saying, you can be married, you cannot be married. We recognize you, we don't recognize you. Doesn't mean I'm pro-gay marriage. It means I'm anti-government involvement in the private decisions of people. That's what I think. Is keep government out of it, because I'm pro small government in most everything. Anyway, Mia says, I didn't see Mia's original statement there. She says, just so everyone knows, I was quoting Charlie Kirk, who I was not a fan. He was the sociopath, not me. I find great value in empathy. Dennis says, I don't care who you sleep with, just don't do it on the street. I agree with that. Dion says, men are not supposed to be bound to one woman. Hydradisa says, it's a spiritual union in a church or religious setting. Rose says, marriage is a legal arrangement. Philip says, I'm suspicious of the trans things because of what trans friends have told me. Anyway, yeah, I mean, these are controversial things, and I certainly, my positions in the past on transgender issues, I'm very careful talking about this stuff now because YouTube is among the platforms where they scan stuff, and I don't want to get strikes against me for being transphobic or whatever, because they're very, very hyper vigilant about stopping people from being who create videos from being critical. But my general feeling is the 40% suicide attempt rate by people who identify as transgender is apocalyptic. Now, if 4 out of 10 people, if 40% of a group of people tries to kill themselves, we need to take a look at that and see what's going on. And the argument that they make is, well, we try and kill ourselves because society doesn't accept us, which I don't believe. I think that maybe there's something else going on there. And if you try to take what is natural and force yourself into something that is not biologically natural for you and is a major, major conflict with the society and environment around you, you are going to feel uncomfortable. And that discomfort is just going to continue and continue and continue. And so I see the more empathetic thing is to, if someone is transgender, love them, befriend them. But that does not mean you have to agree that what they're doing is right. I think showing alternatives and being there to help what ways you can is the better thing to do. If someone's got in a circumstance where there's a 40% chance that they're going to try at least once to kill themselves, to me it seems like the more loving, kind thing to do is not to tell them, oh, you poor thing, the whole world is wrong and you're right. I think the thing is to help them get out of the situation that is probably going to kill them, close to half of them. That's just my view. When I was in, now that transgender thing is new. There was no transgender thing when I was growing up. This is a recent phenomenon. We had transvestites when I was a kid and a teenager. That's what trans was back then. Transvestite is just cross-dresser. You know, a man that dresses like a woman, maybe wears makeup, does drag or something. Rocky Horror Picture Show, but not that you believe that you are the other gender. You identify as the other gender. So that's a more recent phenomenon. What was new to me, I didn't know a whole lot of gay people growing up, but my mom, when I was in high school, my mom got remarried, and the guy she married had a twin brother who was gay, and then their older brother was also gay. One was a flight attendant, one was a hairdresser, you know, very stereotypical. And so I got to know these people. And then after I graduated high school, I went to work in entertainment. And one of the places I worked was an outdoor drama. We had like about 1,000 audience members per night doing a historical drama about basically the conflict between the early Americans and the Redcoats and all that, and the Cherokee. But anyway, my dance partner in that was a couple years older than me. And I moved in with her for the summer, and she became my best friend. She was lesbian. Actually, turned out she was bisexual. She's such a great person. And she lives in Oregon today. I don't know if she's married or divorced from her lesbian partner. But she did get married. And then one of my high school girlfriends, she's now married to her lesbian partner. So I don't know so I have experience in my life that kind of tempered. I had a certain religious viewpoint, but then I had all of these experiences with gay people. And so that kind of, you know, my environment and my beliefs, everything kind of shaped me to who I am. And so I see nuance, I see different sides to some of these issues, and so I don't try and tell anyone else how they should think or what they should do. But I do draw the line at things like the gay pride parades where they just go out there and flaunt sexuality and stuff. You see these gay pride floats with things that are just not cool. And so I think there should be, you know, it's one thing to march, one thing to have a parade. It's another thing to put very graphic sexual behavior on display, and then everyone else be told you're supposed to celebrate this. You know, come on. Not cool. When it becomes militant and you start to try and force me to adopt your values or to believe the way you do, or you start to punish me either through social media restrictions, or you start to punish me at school because I have to write a paper on this. You've assigned me to write about this and you don't like my opinion, but you're going to punish me and call me, you know, anti-gay or whatever because you don't. That's where I draw the line. That's where I say, you know, if you expect for me to give you respect and let you live the way you want to live, you can't turn around and try and force your will on me. If you don't want me to force my viewpoint on you, then you don't force your viewpoint on me. So I just have, in general, a live and let live. As long as you're not hurting someone, you know, if I see something in society that I disagree with and I'm concerned for the sake of my children, then I impart to my children my values. I teach them what I believe, why I believe what I believe. and help them to develop critical thinking skills so that as they mature, they can make up their own minds as to what they believe. That's what I think. Anyway, I don't want to stay too long on this stuff. I'm going to get myself in trouble. I'm going to get myself in trouble. Anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here, guys. Thank you very, very much for hanging out with me. And let's see if we... Oh, Mia Cigar said, this is the quote. I missed your donation earlier, Mia. She says she's got a Charlie Kirk quote that says, I think empathy is a made-up New Age term that does a lot of damage. Thank you for the donation, Mia. I didn't see that earlier. I must have been off in La La Land on a Jake rant. All right, so guys, I'll be back in a couple of days with a regular show. I want to get back to give you some updates on what's going on in Palestine. I'd like to maybe address some of the conflict between NATO, Poland specifically, and Russia. And also jump back, give a little information on one of Epstein's victims that came forward. I had mentioned I was going to talk about that, and I haven't done that yet. So good number of things. So thank you guys for hanging out with me, and I hope you have a great night. Thank you, Katie Cat. Says, okay, Jake, night. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you to the moderators who helped out tonight. And Flickoff says, need to hear your thoughts on Qatar. Oh, yeah. Yeah, with the strike on Hamas there. Thanks, Israel. All right, guys, you take it easy. Have a great night. And today's Wednesday? Thursday, tomorrow, I won't be streaming. Tomorrow, I've got to coach a soccer game. And I'll tell you about my assistant coach next time. So I coach teenagers. I coach a teenage soccer team. We've got a game tomorrow night. My assistant coach, who I just kind of hired him. I didn't hire him. He doesn't get paid. But he is a Muslim from Iraq. He was over there at the start of the Iraq War and lived through some of that. But anyway, he's two of his sons are on the team, and so I'll share some of his story with you. Thank you all. Hope you have a great night, and we'll talk again very soon.